Spurgeon, am I allowed to ask the hard-hitting questions now?
I think it's time.
It's time.
Zach.
Okay.
Yeah.
Ari, that person, well, Spurgeon, you sort of asked this question too. It's sort of like if someone was interested in riding motorcycles, but they didn't want a clutch. They don't want to learn how to use a clutch. Would you be welcoming but saddened, or would you rather they not even bother with motorcycles? Because part of the joy and passion and I don't know, burden that you bear to be a motorcyclist is to learn how to use a clutch lever.
He's asking you, Spurgeon. I would tell him to go learn how to rollerblade. I'm just kidding. I'm welcoming. I mean, I ride a scooter. I like twist and go. Sure. There's certainly a time and a place for it. I would be, if it's just some random person, not so much. If it's someone in my friend group, I would be a little disappointed. I'd be like, you're missing out. You're missing out on things that I think are important. I don't like the dumbing down of society to allow access. Like, I do appreciate the fact that in order to do some things, you have to have developed a certain amount of skill. I think that's satisfying. Like,
that's what I struggle with. That's what I struggle with the most. It's the dumbing down. It's there's something cool. Part of what attracted me into wanting to learn how to ride a motorcycle is I wanted to learn a new skill. I wanted to know something that the average person didn't know how to do. It's the same reason I drive a manual transmission. One, because it's a theft deterrent. Very few people can steal my truck because they can't drive it. But like, there's something cool about learning how to use a clutch. That being said, I want more people to experience motorcycling. And if DCT transmissions and e-clutches and scooters are helping take away that barrier to entry, I'm not mad about that, but I am worried that riding a motorcycle isn't as easy as driving a car. You've got to pay attention, and part of that is learning how to control it. And I guess even if you take away a clutch, there's still a barrier entry of learning there.
So you feel like by requiring people to learn fewer things, you are suggesting that you can get by without knowing that stuff, and therefore not pay attention as much, and therefore be a sort of like less informed and less concerned and less capable rider.
My buddy's a surfer, and there's a surf spot in Southern California that's well known because you have to hike to it. It's a really good surf spot. And he was lamenting how the kids on their Super 73s and electric bikes now with surf racks are just like blowing this spot up. And it's like an intense wave. And it used to be like the people who were there because they were dedicated and skilled. And now there's just like everybody and their little cousin is there. And it's like kind of become a shit show. And so in some ways that analogy works for motorcycling, right? Like if you've suddenly like made it so easy to ride a 650cc bike that'll go 100 miles an hour in the blink of an eye, and yet they don't have, the person who's riding it doesn't have the fundamental skill because they didn't learn how to use a clutch on a Rebel 250 or a Ninja 400, then like I understand that. But I also still understand that everyone here on my screen very much wants more people to ride motorcycles so we can continue to be employed.
Yeah. Well, because I think we also appreciate it, but I think I have a similar story, I guess, not with surfing, but specifically with motorcycles, where when I was living in Nashville, I had a roommate who, God love him, he was adorable, but probably didn't have any place necessarily being on two wheels. And in the entire time that I was there, I had, two, if not more motorcycles in the garage. He never once asked to ride them. He never once said, "Oh, can I go hop on your Bonneville, your VFR or whatever?" I brought home a Metropolitan 50 scooter from Honda, and within like 30 seconds, he was like, "Oh, can I go ride that?" And I was like, "Yeah, sure." Like, that's like, I would love for you to go try this out. And within a minute of him trying to ride it, he almost ate shit and crashed the thing. And so like, I think because there's almost this perception. At least it wasn't 650.
Yeah.
True. But it was almost like I can just hop on and go and not have to feel any of the steps necessary to like get on it. I don't know. That's my only concern, if that makes sense.
I think it's fascinating that we've come to this conversation about alternative transmissions and like barrier of entry and like, oh, can someone just get on and ride it and not totally understand it? This is kind of the same conversation that we could have about anti-lock brakes, right? Is it a bad idea for someone to only ever ride a bike that has ABS and not understand what the limits of the machine are. Because that's tough for me. I'm
That's
like,
tough.
I
That's
like
saying
ABS.
you
It's
should,
good.
don't drive a car with airbags so that you won't get in accidents. It's like such a safety. It's such a safety feature. It's there for when stuff goes wrong. It's not there. It's like I said, I still use ABS. I consider myself a pretty adept braker, but like I still always rely on ABS on my ride home from work or riding on the street because it is such a valuable safety feature.
Right. I just don't see ABS isn't a barrier to entry, though. I think the transmission.
Okay. No. Fair enough. So you can probably tell where I'm going with this, but now let's talk about traction control. Are people less capable for having never had to understand that, or is it like perfectly fair for someone to go through their motorcycling life and never spin the rear tire? You don't have
lots
to
of people
enjoy
do.
motorcycling, right? Sure.
Yeah.
Okay.
You don't need to. You know, like traction control is, in my mind, traction control. Other than the suspension, traction control as far as tires continuing to adhere to the pavement are concerned, it's the least important, least crucial safety feature or rider aid.
I think it's interesting because like where I typically find myself having this conversation is with new riders that say, I want to ride a motorcycle, but I can't afford a new motorcycle, and I'm looking at used motorcycles and they don't have ABS or they don't have traction control. Is it safe? Is it safe to start on a motorcycle that doesn't have ABS or traction control? I think every single person here started on a motorcycle without ABS or traction control. And I think that's where I find the conversation, especially around traction control and ABS, to be the most interesting. Is that if you had somebody that came up to you and said, I really want to ride a motorcycle, but I'm looking at a 1996 Ninja 250. Should I learn how to ride on that? It's the only thing I can afford. My buddy has one. He's selling it for $500. Like it doesn't have ABS and it doesn't have traction control. But why are you saying that? Like, but why?
It doesn't go that fast. So like, you're probably not going to lock up the tires. It's got the manual clutch that I want everyone to know how to use. And it's not that fast. Like it's light. It's cheap. Like, yeah, it's been the iconic beginner bike other than the Rebel 250 since 1986, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
So on the other end of that extreme, imagine this person that says like, I'm going to learn to ride a motorcycle. I don't know anything about it, but I took the test and I'm allowed to do it. So I'm doing it. And I'm going to go to the Honda dealership and I'm going to buy a Honda CBR 650R. And I'm just going to ride away from that dealership. And then that person rides that bike around for a while. They don't know how to use a clutch. They don't know what ABS is or traction control is. They just know it's a motorcycle and they ride around. They're starting to lean through corners. They're having fun. Maybe they take that bike to a track day. Absolutely take a CBR 650R to a track day. Our buddy Dustin wrote an article about that on Common Tread. Quick plug. And they are now like learning to lean over and like ride faster. And they've never learned how to use a clutch. They don't know anything about ABS or traction control or anything like that. They just have a motorcycle that does all these things for them.
And they just pass you on the track.
Exactly. And they just went blowing by you. So I'm inclined to both be sort of concerned and a little bit disappointed that like, don't you care about those things? But I'm also just like happy. And now that I've built this fake scenario in my head, I'm thinking that the person who does that, who takes that path and is like interested in going to a track day at all, if they don't know, if they've never known a life without ABS or without traction control, they're the type of person that's going to care to learn anyway. Yeah. So those systems are not going to inhibit them.
That's where my head is at, is that like, if you have a person that, if you can get them into it and they can become passionate about it, my hope would be they're going to want to naturally learn how to be better at it. They're going to want to learn what these tools are, or maybe a little bit more of clutch finesse and things like that. So to that point, maybe having the barrier to entry removed in the beginning will help people.
For the right person, I think that's absolutely true.
Yeah. It does. It boils down a lot to like personality and character too, and why they're approaching motorcycling in the first place.